By the end of this episode, we'll have every bridge in Wisconsin built, and that's a tall order if you've ever played this region. Welcome to the Wisconsin road trip, everybody. Let's get started. We'll get started by taking the A&K over to the crafting zone with a loaded fuel tanker. There's already a generator trailer over there, so all we need to do is back up to it and get it turned on. I'm bringing a fuel tanker with, just to make sure that we have extra fuel for crafting, because as you know, we discussed previously, crafting materials requires fuel to run the generator. So everything that you craft will deplete your fuel reserves in the generator. We haven't gone this way yet, but there's a really deep mud hole just up ahead. And the first time I drive through it, I'm going to take the way that I don't normally take, just to show you how bad it is. So don't judge me just yet for taking this path. But as you can see, the A&K with the tag of tires does get through it okay, but the second time and third time, it's going to get really bad. And if you have a truck that does not have mud tires, you'll most likely be winching your way through there. Just out of the other side, up to the left, there's a crafting area. We can turn up the hill here, and we're going to make a loop around it so we can come back in from the backside. This will get us positioned to hook up to the trailer a little bit better. And also, I just wanted to show you that there is a way to get through here, as you may not have known it previously. So we'll cut right between the power line pole and the building, just knock the fence over, and then you can see the generator trailer is right back there. Let's back up to it. We'll need to pull it into this yellow box for it to be usable. So just remember that the trailer has to be in the box, not the truck. Once you get it in there, the yellow color will change slightly, and that'll give you an indication that it's in the right spot. We can get it turned on right away. It doesn't use any fuel from turning it on. It only uses fuel when you're crafting. So basically you can have it turned on the entire time you're playing the map. Let's jump back into the garage. We're going to get the Collab 74760. First thing I'm going to do is purchase an 8-slot trailer, because we need to haul a whole stack of metal beams over to the bridge building area. This just past the gas station. If you're using this truck, make sure you have the active suspension installed that we found in Yukon, and you might as well get it raised up right away because it greatly improves the performance of this vehicle. The Collab is a beast of a truck with this 8-slot trailer. In my opinion, it is probably the most effective vehicle in the entire game for pulling it. It definitely is a powerhouse, and it has the additional weight that it needs to get that trailer yanked over some of the problem areas when the feet get stuck. The Collab also has access to mud tires, and I'm running the MSH2 tires with a mud rating of 3.2. We can take the Collab through the muddy spot just like we did with the A&K, just so I can show you that this truck does not have any issue at all going through the problem areas of this map. I actually purchased the Collab when we were leaving Kola Peninsula, as I had plans to use it in Yukon, but plans changed when we got over there and I decided to use the P16 in place of it. So it's been sitting in the truck storage ever since. Funny enough, if you look back at the money that we had when we left Kola and then the money we had when we got to Yukon, you can see the price difference after purchasing this truck, although nobody caught on to it. Now that we're up here, we're going to get some metal beams crafted right away. There are a few things you can craft in this warehouse, but we just need metal beams, so we'll get 4 of them and then load them up. We're just going to back out of here. When you're backing down the hill, you basically want to watch the back of your trailer, kind of get prepared to start turning the trailer to the left, and once you see the trailer go past that tall tree, just crank it hard so it can go down the road. Otherwise you'll end up backing out into the trees on the other side of the road, and it's kind of difficult to get it pulled back out of there without getting it hung up on the power line pole. If you have trouble with it, just try driving up the hill and giving it another shot. This time when we cross the river, instead of taking that path between the rocks, I'm just going to drive over here to the left. It's actually quite a bit better to drive here. There's some rocks underneath the water that'll help to keep you from sinking all the way down. And I'm just going to run it in low. Occasionally I'll swap it up to low plus if I feel like it's gaining traction, but anytime you start to feel that traction dissipate, make sure you drop it back into low right away. We got a really heavy load on here. The active suspension dramatically improves the performance of this truck. It just gives you so much more clearance on that front bumper. and the truck itself has A-arm suspension instead of solid axle, so there is actually a lot of ground clearance through the middle of it. I did consider using the P16 in this map, but although it is doable, for some reason, it really feels lacking on power here. I think it's just because of the sharp inclines that are in Wisconsin, and I end up finding myself winching my way up every hill when the trailer's loaded. This hill right here is the one that I always have to winch my way up when I'm driving the P16. I don't quite understand how I was able to go pretty much anywhere in Yukon fully loaded, even up the mountainsides, but once I got onto this map, the P16 just felt like it was dogged out and didn't want to perform. It makes me wonder if some of the different regions have coating in them that affects the performance of the trucks. I've noticed before that some trucks perform better in some regions than they do in others. Just a theory that I have. There's no proof behind that. But now that we're back to the pavement, we can pretty much just keep it in auto. I am running the advanced special gearbox, so we will have a little additional speed with this vehicle. Most of the time there isn't any need to run the special. This truck has plenty of power, and I don't really ever have an issue with it powering out when pulling a fully loaded 8-slot trailer. The first bridge that we're working on is the Creek Bridge, and it requires 2 metal beams. So once we get that one built, we'll have 2 metal beams left over that we can put towards the next bridge. Although the next bridge requires 6 in total, so we'll have to do some hunting around and see if we can find some out in the area to deliver there. I think we'll be able to though. This truck actually works pretty good in high gear also. Occasionally it will power out in high gear when you're going up a pretty steep spot like this one, but for the most part it does pretty good. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I highly recommend this truck if you're pulling the 8-slot trailer. And I did mention that in Yukon when we pulled out the P16, and hopefully some of you took my advice and tried this truck out. I'm gonna get topped off with fuel real quick, passing through here, and I'm actually taking this path intentionally, not just for the fuel, but also so I don't have to pull that trailer around that corner and get it hung up on the poles. Pretty much anytime you're using the 8-slot trailer, you don't want to have to take any sharp turns, so just kind of always keep your eye out for cutoffs that you can use when you're going around corners. A broad sweeping motion is always a better way. Alright, we've made it to the Creek Bridge. Let's get these first 2 turned in, and we'll get the bridge built. Excellent. Now from here we're going to move on to the Factories Bridge, and as you can see, like I said, it does require 6 metal beams. We're going to take these 2 up there and get them dropped off, and then we'll go hunting around to get the other 4. Now you could go back to the garage and head over to that first crafting area and just craft 4 more metal beams to get this one finished off, which is totally fine. But in order to do that, you would either need to bring out another truck and trailer, or drive this one all the way back over there, or you could just sacrifice the trailer. So all 3 options would be fine, depends on how you want to play this, but I kind of like to have a little bit more of a fluid play style and actually try to go from one thing to the next instead of constantly having to go back to the beginning and get loaded again. So I'll show you how I'm going to do it. We got the first 2 turned in. Now as you can see on the other side of the lake there's some metal framing over there that we can go pick up. There's actually 2 metal beams in that framing zone. If we take this little trail off to the right, and there's a river running down to the lake, we can drive right across that river and follow this rock bridge across the lake. You just kind of want to stay to the left because on the right side there's some jagged edges and the trailer might get hung up on them. Let's grab these beams. So we got 2 more to add to the pile, and there is a drop-off zone on this side of the bridge, so we'll just drive up the hill and get them turned in. Once we turn these ones in, we can continue down this paved highway, and there is a yellow diamond icon on the map that shows that there's more metal framing out here in the wild. So let's go find it and we'll load it up. This highway is kind of a godsend for traveling across the middle of the map, although there are some rock falls out here that you have to drive over, but it isn't really anything too bad, especially for this vehicle. If we followed this road all the way up, it would take you up to the rolled steel factory on the top of the hill. But we're not going that way. We're going to cut off to the left here and head down by the lake side, and we're going to follow the edge of the water all the way around over by the gas station. We actually haven't even been over there yet because on the previous 2 episodes when we were scouting out this region, we just followed the outside perimeter of the map around to get everything discovered. So this is actually the first time that we're going through the center of the map. And although you can't really see it, there is a road that follows the edge of the water here. You'll have to drive in the water, but it's not too deep and there isn't really any current. It's just kind of muddy. Should be fine though. Most vehicles can make it through here without any problem. Yes, I opted to use the 8 slot again in this region. It does pretty well here. It's a wide open area, and for the most part, it won't give you any trouble. I would say the biggest troubles that I've had with it are going to be getting turned around in some of these drop-off zones, and pickup zones I guess also. But if you plan out your route, it shouldn't be too much of an issue as well. Okay, we got 2 more loaded up. The gas station is just across the road to my right, so getting turned around we might as well get topped off with fuel and make sure we have enough for the rest of our trip. I believe it was a hint in the actual game tutorial at the very beginning of Michigan that said, anytime you can get fuel, you should. And I've lived by that rule for the last 3 years, with some exceptions of course. And for the most part, running out of fuel isn't really something that happens to me. My mantra is, I like to have a full tank. Okay, let's head back across the river here, and then we'll follow the lake side again. We're gonna head back over there and get the factory's bridge finished off. There's another bridge in this map after this one that has a pretty good sized cargo list to turn in for that one as well. I believe it's 4 metal beams and 2 concrete slabs. We'll get working on that one after this, and then the only remaining bridge here is gonna be the wooden bridge in the middle of the map. That wooden bridge is actually a really good shortcut for heading up to the brick building factory. So we're definitely going to want to make sure we get that one built before we get working on any contracts. Now after you go past the brick framing here, heading back out the other side, this little hill that goes up to the pavement is actually kind of steep, and the trailer legs do get stuck on the ridge sometimes. So I try to drive off to the right here where the ground is a little more solid, and then the trailer doesn't sink into the ground so far going up the hill. It just gives you a little bit less of a chance of getting hung up here. There's also some solid trees here that you can winch to if you do start getting hung up. But we made it back to the main road. We're going to follow it down, and a bridge building cutscene is in our near future. I just want to say thank you to everybody that watched the first episode of Wisconsin Road Trip. The support was pretty humbling for me. I think that video got about 5,000 views in the first few days, which is definitely one of the higher performing videos on this channel. If you didn't get a chance to see the second episode, and now you're watching this one, please make sure you go back and check that one out as well. Historically, the second episode usually doesn't perform as well as the first one, and I'm not really sure why, but it would mean a lot to me if you would check it out. Okay, we made it up here to the bridge. Let's get these 2 turned in. And Factory's bridge is now complete. Let's activate the railway bridge. That's the remaining one that we need to complete. And as you can see, we need to start it out with 4 metal beams. It is a 2-stage task, and it needs to be done in a certain order. So the first thing we got to do is figure out where we're going to get these beams from. Luckily, there's some more metal framing over by the railway station. We can head over there now and go get loaded up. So we'll take a right back over here by the Hummer. We left the Hummer there on the first episode. It was actually a reward from one of the tasks. And then we'll go right back down the road that we came up here on. But before we cross that bridge that we built right away, we're going to hang a left and take a back road that crosses the river. If you went across the bridge, you wouldn't have to go this way to get past the river. But making a left turn is really difficult when you have this trailer. It pretty much always gets hung up on the guardrails. So rather than doing that, we'll just take this shortcut across. And if you remember on episode 1, I always said to stay to the right, a little bit downstream, and it'll help you to avoid driving over those big boulders. The Collab doesn't have any problem at all pulling through here. I know I've said it before, but this thing is a beast of a truck. It can handle pretty much anything. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it does guarantee that you'll most likely get there, even with a massive load on your trailer. Let's follow the river up this trail. We came down this way with the Lodestar on the first episode. We rescued that Hummer just off to the left in the river, But this time when we get to the top of the hill, we're going to take a right and head through the trees, and we'll be able to get access to that other metal framing. There's an old abandoned logging station here. It's not functional, but we'll head through it either way, and then we're going to take the first left, drive down a rock path, and that metal framing will be at the bottom of the hill. When you get to this rock path, it can be a little bit tricky to get the trailer legs over the top of them, so I try to make a wide corner to the right, get the truck up as high as possible before the legs get to them, and then just follow it around. There's that metal framing. Let's go get it loaded up. So we'll get 2 beams from this location, and you can see straight ahead there is another location we can head to. So we can go right out the other side, heading north, and we'll go down another rock path. This path has a bunch of ledges on it, and it's pretty difficult to go up, but going down it really isn't any problem at all. Okay, let's follow this path to the left. We'll go around the lake. You can see that metal framing is just up ahead. There is a task here that we activated on episode 1, where we need to pull that medium logging trailer to a house that's over by the garage. We'll work on that later on when we start doing the logging in this area. I have a special plan for that trailer as well. Alright, we made it over here. Let's get these other 2 loaded up. And we're going to head straight out the backside, follow the lake around to the east, and then we'll head south and drive all the way down to the railway bridge. If you remember on the last episode when we activated that task, it's all the way down in the southeast corner of the map, and there's a pretty treacherous road on the way there that has a lot of deep mud, which is one of the main reasons why I chose this truck to use. It's not impossible to get through it with other vehicles. In fact, there's quite a few that can do it. But sometimes it's just nice to drive something that's virtually unstoppable and rip through an area without any trouble. And this is my time to do that. In Yukon, I got maybe a little bit too focused on using more challenging trucks to do the jobs in Big Salmon Peak. And although it was fun and maybe added a little bit of charm to the series, in Wisconsin, I really just have my heart set on completing this region in the most efficient manner. And I also kind of had to take a step back and remember the original intent for this series was to give guidance to newer players. So I want to make sure I'm suggesting trucks that are capable and aren't going to give you that much of a hard time. Although I do have plans to bring out some of the old trucks that we found in Michigan once we get into the other map. Okay, we've made it back down to the gas station. I'm going to make sure I get topped off one more time before we get started on this trek. I mean, technically we probably have enough fuel. The Kolob has a massive 380 liter tank, and it's actually quite fuel efficient, even with the top engine, but it's always good to have a full tank. Come on, you know I'm right, and I'm sure most of you feel the same way. From here it should be pretty straightforward. We're just heading straight south on this road. We'll go past the paper factory, which is 3 of the major contracts of this region, getting it restored. But either way, we're going to go past it and follow the back road out of there, and that's when we'll get into the thick of it. Also, have you noticed how big the horns are on the top of this thing? You know they vary in size on different vehicles. Some of them have the smaller horns on the hood, some of them are a little bit bigger. The Twin Steer has some pretty big ones on the hood, but on this vehicle they're up on the top of the cab by that off-road light bar, and they just look evil. I love it. Okay, we're heading up the pavement here, but don't let it fool you, because the bad stuff is about to begin. There's actually 2 spots through here that get pretty treacherous. This first one is a long stretch of mud that's really sloppy. It's not super deep, it's just really slick and sloshy. A lot of the other trucks will struggle in this spot. If you stay to the right, you can winch to the poles if you need to. And as we found in Yukon, the 8-slot trailer is great for winching between longer split apart winch points like the power line poles. But this thing doesn't have any problem at all, even in low plus. Man, that truck looks good. It's one of my favorites. I've actually been itching to use this thing for quite some time. I had planned on using it through the entire Yukon region, and I knew it was sitting in the garage, and there was more than one time where I was ready to pull it out. But I waited, and I almost waited and didn't use it in Wisconsin. I was struggling to make this choice. I had considered using the P16 multiple times, but I just realized in Yukon when I was using the P16, it went so slow through a lot of those areas, I had to speed the footage up to like 8 times the normal speed just to make it watchable, and I didn't want to have to do that here. Okay, the second mud hole is just up ahead here, and this one isn't very long, but it just has really deep mud. Once again, there are places that you can winch to if you need to get through here. There's also a shortcut that goes through the trees off to the left of that corner. It's not marked out on the map, but you can find it if you're looking. Now that we're out the other side, the only thing we really got to worry about is these boulders on the road just up ahead. They're not too large or anything like that, so it shouldn't be a problem. But if you're driving a faster truck through here, like say the twin steer, they can blow out your suspension pretty easily. Okay, we made it. The railway bridge is here. We'll get these ones turned in. Perfect. Now for stage 2, we're going to jump back into the garage and grab the twin steer. I did install the off-road gearbox, much to my dismay. I absolutely love using this truck with the high range, but if you remember back in Tamir, I had to take the high range out of all of my trucks in Drownlands. This map is the exact same way. It's just full of stuff that's going to wreck your vehicle, and I didn't want to have to follow this thing around with the service trailer. So for this map, I'm going to use the off-road. The twin steer also doesn't have much of an issue getting through this spot, although I did swap out the tires. The last time we used it in Yukon, I had the off-road OHS 2s on here, but this time I installed the mud tires from the JAT tire pack. We're going to run back up here and craft these 2 concrete slabs, and we'll get them loaded up and head all the way up to that end of the map. When you're backing down the hill, just take it real easy so you don't accidentally flip this truck over when you're going around the corner. It gets kind of uneven. As you can see, there are some massive horns on the front of it too, and they do look really good. Now when we leave here, we're going to take the same trail that we did with the collab, going to the left. The only time I really go through those rocks is when I'm unloaded. The twin steer also doesn't have any issue getting through this spot. There are a bunch of trees laying over underneath the water, so if you do start struggling through there, just look for some winch points to help pull you through. They set it up pretty nice to be a little cut around. Alright, we're out of it. We're going to go up the other side. The twin steer's got massive power, so it's not going to struggle at all going up this hill. Then we'll head down the highway and start our journey over there. I would say the biggest challenge with this thing, even with the off-road gearbox, is just making sure you don't blow out the suspension going down the highway. All the little rocks and dips in the road can pose a big problem if you're going too fast. Once again, when we go through this lower spot here, I usually try to stay to the left. The mud is a little more forgiving on the left side. There's some rocks to give you something to drive on. It just seems like it's a little quicker than trying to drive straight through the middle. Then we'll get topped off at the gas station before we head out. The twin steer also has a very massive fuel tank with 360 liters, but it's a lot more fuel hungry than the collab. So you always want to make sure that you have enough. Especially when you're running the off-road gearbox, this thing drinks the fuel, which is also another reason why I like to use the high range. It does make it a little bit more efficient. The high range efficiency doesn't necessarily come strictly from the liters per minute, but you have to also consider that it doesn't take as long to get places, having that higher top speed. So even though the liters per minute might be similar to the off-road gearbox, the amount of time that it takes you to get from point A to point B is going to be considerably less. So in the end, using less fuel. I think a lot of people struggle with the high range because it takes so much damage, and it does, But if I could give you any advice on how to use it properly, essentially, when you have it in high gear, it's going to take the most amount of damage going over rough spots. So if you're about to hit a rock or a dip and you know that it's going to take damage, if you shift back to auto before you do, you're a lot less likely to destroy your truck going through there. Also, you got to let off on the throttle. I know these videos can be a little bit deceiving because it looks like I'm flying through everywhere, but you got to remember that's because it's sped up. Most of the time, I'm letting off on the gas before I go over rough stuff. It's kind of an art form to learn how to drive it properly. I would say the entire first year that I used that gearbox, I was blowing out my suspension right and left, constantly running lowriders around the map, and then I finally started learning how to back off a little bit and drive it with a little more finesse. That made all the difference, and now I'm able to use the high range in most of the maps, not all of them, but some of them are just set up to wreck your trucks if you have any speed at all. And I'm sure if you've been watching me for a while, you've figured out by now that I pretty much use them in all of my vehicles. Even the Scouts, I typically run the freeway gearbox. Okay, we made it up here. Time to get these turned in. Alright, railway bridge is now complete. From here we're going to jump into the Hummer because we need to activate that wooden bridge task that's down in the middle of the map. We didn't drive by there on episode 1, but we did leave the Hummer here for this purpose. So we can go right across the bridge that we just built, the factory's bridge, and then we'll hang a right and head down by that metal framing, and that wooden bridge is just around the corner. This wooden bridge is a little ridiculous because it requires 8 wooden planks. Yes, 8. And I'm pretty sure this is possibly the only wooden bridge in the entire game that requires such a huge cargo load. And there are some wooden planks around the map in different wood framing locations that we could get access to, but we'd have to drive everywhere to get them. And I typically like to save those for the contracts later on that are in the areas where they're at. The second option is straight up ahead of the collab here. You can see that there's a sawmill which has a wooden plank crafting zone. Now you could bring a load of logs over here and turn them in and it'll craft wooden planks for you. I believe it's 2 planks for every log. So for one load of 3 logs, you would get 6 wooden planks out of it. I know that's the case for the second map, and I'm trying to remember for sure if it's the same for this one. But either way, we would have to pull out a logging truck just to get access to those wooden planks. So instead, what I like to do is run over to the Grainwoods River map, and there's some wooden framing over there that we can get loaded up. There's actually 4 houses all in a row, and we can get 2 planks from each one. So a fully loaded 8-slot trailer. Then we'll head back over here and run them down to that bridge and get them turned in. It's kind of the quick and easy way to do it, which is what I prefer in this situation, so we can get the bridge built right away. And that gateway is just up ahead here. We're almost there. When you're going through the gateway, it will give you a warning saying that the collab and super heavy may cause collision problems. Just go through it anyways. You won't have any problems with it. Basically, it's just telling you that the trailer is so long, it might hit the end of the road when you load in and send you flying, but it never happens. We'll have to open up the map and switch over to Black Badger Lake to activate the wooden bridge task again. And those 4 houses that we can deconstruct are right inside of here. So we're going to take our first right. We'll follow this back road around the edge of the map. It goes right over the top of the railway tunnel. It kind of makes a horseshoe, and then it goes down the hill on the other side, and those 4 houses are all in a row. Super easy, super efficient, just how I like it. This road does have some humps on it that the trailer legs could get stuck on. If you're using a different truck to do this, you may encounter some problems with that, but the collab should be tall enough. In my opinion, this collab is one of the unsung heroes of SnowRunner. You don't really ever see anybody use it, or even hear people talk about it often, but man is it good. Especially once you get the active suspension, it dramatically improves. So the first spot is right here, then we'll have to go up around the corner to get to the second one. This corner may give you some problems with this trailer. There's some tight squeezes to get through here. But once again, if you don't try to go around that outside pole, but instead cutting between it and the trees, it should be a lot better. I would say this is probably the worst spot on this road for being problematic. The rest of it is basically just a flat, straight road. Now there are some wooden planks required for use on this map as well, but we have a crafting zone here, and I'm gonna most likely just use that to take care of the requirements. Just to the right of me is where that order for logs task is, just to kind of give you an idea where we're at. We'll head across the road here, get the third load, then we'll just back out. That fourth load is on the way back out to the highway. Now we can go across the tracks. You kind of have to watch out that you don't get your trailer legs stuck on them. They're kind of a steep angle. We ran into that problem in Yukon as well. And then we'll take a right, and you can see where that wood framing is for the final load. We got 6 of them on the trailer right now. We only need 2 more. And we made it. Number 7 and 8. Now let's head back out to the highway. It's just through these trees. Now if your truck is damaged at all and you need to repair it, this would be a good point to stop and disconnect and run through the garage right there. Then just come back out, get hooked up, and we'll head back out. Heading back up this road is really an easy trip. It's going uphill, so it's a little bit slower, but there isn't any terrain issues that we need to deal with. So as long as you don't get stuck on any of these corners, it should be a pretty painless experience. Just up ahead is where we discovered that last watchtower on the last episode, the one that gave us the great view of the map. We'll go past that, and not too much farther is that gateway. Time to cruise. Wisconsin has some pretty scenic backgrounds on this map as well, with the mountains back there. I really do like this region. There's so many trees here. I know there's a lot of trees in Tamir, but I don't think there's quite near as many as this. I guess Alaska had quite a few trees as well, in some of the spots, like Pedro Bay. Alright, you can see the yellow diamond there. The gateway is just up ahead. We're almost to it. Now if you encounter a warning again for collision issues going into Black Badger Lake, once again, you shouldn't have any problem. Alright, we're back in Black Badger Lake. Instead of following the main road down, this time we're going to cut off to the right. So you'll need to back up just a little bit and get turned, and then we can head down this back road here. I'm going to show you a little quicker way to get to that wooden bridge instead of following the highway all the way down to the paper factory again. We did come this way with the Lodestar on the last episode because we still had a little bit of the southeast corner of this map to discover and some upgrades that we had to find. So for a little ways we're going to follow the same path. Then I'll show you where we're going to cut off and head down to the river. The shoreline basically acts like a highway to get from one side of the map to the other. It's probably the easiest way to go from east to west and vice versa, rather than following this road all the way around. So there will be more than once that we utilize it for that purpose. Once you get past this brick framing here, and you get to the river crossing, if you remember, we crossed it on the left side where the rocks are sticking up out of the water, and then we went up the hill. This time we're going to cross it in the same spot, but we're going to turn left by these rocks instead of to the right, and head down by this house. This is where that saving the farmer's machinery task is, the one where we need to pull the white western star over here that's sitting in the swamp. We'll go right past it and just follow this shoreline all the way up to where that wooden bridge is. You can see the icons there up ahead. It's pretty much a straight shot. Just use your own discretion when driving through here and try to stay wherever you think looks like the best place to drive. There are some humps out here that the trailer can get stuck on, but I believe in your intuition and I think you can figure it out. We'll have to go around this big rock pile, and then there is a pretty deep ditch on the other side of it. I usually try to stay to the right, just old habits. And you probably noticed that there was a wooden bridge back there that you can use to cross a river if you're driving around on this part of the map also. Although going up the hill on the other side is kind of treacherous, but you can follow the shoreline on that side all the way back down to the paper factory. Shortcuts, they come in handy. There's a little shack here. We're gonna go right past that. We're almost to the bridge. We made it here. Let's get these 8 wooden planks turned in for this tiny little bridge. Now I'll just back the Collab up a little bit so it's not parked in front of there. And then we're going to leave it here and jump back into the twin steer. From here we're going to head back over to Grainwoods River and we're going to get all the bridges built on that map as well. It's kind of important that you do them in a certain order to make your life a lot easier, and I'm going to show you what order that is. Don't forget to get topped off with fuel going through the gas station. And then just on the other side of this mud hole, make sure you don't blow out your suspension going up this hill. If you do choose to use high gear, just back off a little bit when you're going across the rocks. You don't want to go through there full throttle. And we're to the gateway. Okay, the first task we're going to work on is the North Bridge, and it's a 2-stage task. The first stage requiring 2 metal beams. There's only 2 spots on this map where you can get metal beams out in the wild, and it's 2 metal framing locations that have 1 at each location. They're right next to each other, so we'll be able to head there right away and get loaded up. It's really important that you do the North Bridge first, because it'll give you access to the rolled steel factory so you can craft metal beams for the second one. We're going to take the second right off of this road. We came up this way with the Lodestar, but this time we're going down it. And then we're going to take a left and head through the canyon and down the hill on the other side. This is going to take us right down underneath that last watchtower that we discovered. You can see there are some oil barrels that have spawned out here. Just try to drive around them. The second one is right in the middle of the road, so you'll have to go off to the left and kind of push it to the side if you need to. And then once you get out of the canyon, the road splits up into a few different paths. The furthest left path takes you all the way to the metal framing, but it's also the worst road to drive down as far as tipping over. So I'm going to take the one just to the right of it, which is pretty much straight, and it kind of zigzags through the trees. When you're going down the hill, you're going to want to make sure you don't go too fast and tip over, like I did. Even though I didn't think I was going that fast. But we're going to pull a rescue truck out, and just as I promised, we're going to use the White Western Star for this job. I brought a low saddle trailer with, so we can use this later on to load up those oil barrels that are spawned down here. But for now, we'll just park it to the side and get the twin steer tipped back up, and we'll leave it here, jump back into the twin steer, and continue on with our plan. Just around the corner is that metal framing. I'm going to go past the first pickup spot, and I'll get loaded at the second point, and then we can back up and turn around and grab that first one again. It's kind of uneven through here, so when you're backing up to turn around, just make sure you don't tip over. You probably don't have a rescue truck down here like I do, because I'm sure you came down that hill without any problems, right? Let me know if you made it in the comments. Alright, we're all loaded up. Time to head back up the hill and head all the way over to the railway station to build that North Bridge. Going up the hill can be a little tricky as well. I'm going to try to use high gear for the most of it, if possible, just because it's going to make our hill climbing experience a lot more enjoyable. We'll see how well it does. Thanks again, White Western Star. Appreciate your help. Now in this situation, I'll stick to the path for the most part, but my main goal is to try to just keep the truck straight. Even though it's kind of winding and twisting and turning through here, I really don't want this truck to be going back and forth that much. Then when you get towards the top, you're going to want to stay to the left because the road banks hard downhill to the left side. Just try to stay off of that spot. We're back up to the canyon. We're going to cruise through it, and when we get to the end of the road here, where the T is, we'll hang a left and go down the hill. Okay, we've made it to the left turn. Now going down this road, there's a couple spots where there's some dips that you can't really see when you're driving down it. But if you stay to the left side of the road, you'll have a lot better chance of not tipping this truck over. Just keep your eye open for those dips. I've definitely flipped many trucks coming down this hill, and this truck in particular more than once. But I guess in the end that does make you a little better player, right? When you know what to watch out for. Now we've made it out the bottom. We can just cruise down this road. We're back over to where we got those wooden planks when we came through here with the collab. Okay, we're back over by the garage now, and I'm actually going to run through it just to get repaired and refueled. You probably really don't need to, because we will have a fuel point and a repair point later on, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I like to run through the garage anytime I'm close to it. Now it's going to be basically highway from this point on, so the only thing that you really need to watch out for is losing control if you end up going too fast. But most of the deliveries on this map for the major contracts are going to be running up and down this highway. There are some tight twisting turns, but for the most part, it's pretty safe. We'll take a left at this turn up here. That north bridge is just around the corner. And here it is. Let's turn these first two in. Okay, stage 1 is complete. Now we need to get 2 service spare parts. So we'll need to turn around and then head over to the railway station where we can find a warehouse that has them. I like to just back off to the right here. It's pretty flat, nothing to worry about. Then when we're leaving here, we can actually take a shortcut to the railway station by cutting through the trees and heading right down to the tracks. Then we'll just follow the tracks all the way over there. When you get a little bit closer, there are some stumps, so keep your eye open for them. There's the loading zone. Let's get loaded up. If you're playing hard mode, this is where your repair resupply zone is, just like it was in Yukon at the railway station. You'll have to come over here to restock your add-ons and service trailers. Let's grab 2 service spare parts here, then we'll head back over to that bridge. We can follow the tracks back out of here and take the same shortcut through the trees that we took to get over here. So as you can see, up ahead there, this path between the tracks actually follows all the way up to the gateway that we came into this map on. So it's kind of a shortcut route. If you need to get somewhere fast, you can go that way. But we're turning off because we got a bridge to build. And here it is. Alright, the north bridge is complete. Now from here, we can work on the wooden bridge task, which only requires 2 wooden planks this time, and we can find them just up ahead at a spot where there's wooden framing. This is probably the easiest bridge to build on this entire region, because you can get the cargo right next to the drop-off, which is kind of a win sometimes, right? Believe me, there's going to be plenty of cargo hauling on this map that we need to deal with later on. So just enjoy having an easy one for a change. let's get these turned in. Okay, wooden bridge is done. Now we can drive across it, and there's another task and an upgrade up here that we need to discover. This is the Gone with the Wind task, which requires us to load up 5 bricks that are spawned down in the river, right down by the White Western Star. So we'll get those loaded up later on with the mini crane. I'm going to back up a little bit so I can cut through the trees here and get a better angle at grabbing this upgrade. This is the raised suspension for the Boar. So now we have all of the upgrades for that truck, and we'll be using it in this region. Let's turn around and head back over to the railway station. We can get loaded up with metal rolls over there to take over to the rolled steel factory and craft into some metal beams. We'll be using those on the South Bridge task, which is what we're going to do next. So let's get it tracking. As you can see, this is also a 2-stage task, just like the North Bridge was, and the first stage requires the 2 beams. Let's head right back past this farmland where we grabbed the wooden planks. We'll need to go all the way back to where we got those service spare parts just a few minutes ago. And now that we're back to the highway, we should be able to cruise. We're going to take the same cutoff through the trees that we took the last time. It makes it go a lot easier through here. You can actually go a little bit further up and cut down to the tracks as well, but there's some humps up there that some of the trucks will get stuck on, and some big rocks. So the path through the trees is probably the easiest one to go through. Now we're back over here, and I'm going to get turned around before we get loaded. We're going to need 4 metal rolls in order to get 2 beams, and there's 15 of them in the warehouse. Okay, let's head back over to the highway, and we'll take that road that goes across the long bridge. You know, the one that we got cruising on with the Lodestar. I like that bridge. This part of the map is actually a lot of fun to drive down when you have the high range gearbox installed, because you can really get tearing through here. It just happens to be that by the time you get there, you're pretty much driving a lowrider. I do like to always stay to the right going through this mud pit. It's a little bit more firm there. And then kick it down going across the long bridge. You can get some good speed on this one. Just don't get going too fast that you drift and lose control. And now we've made it to the Bayline Steel Mill, aka the Rolled Steel Factory. So this is also a storage zone, just like we encountered in Yukon, but we can turn these 4 in, and you don't need a generator here. You can just craft the beams. We'll get reloaded, turned around, and head back down past the railway station to the South Bridge. It's down in the southeast quadrant of the map. It's a really beautiful view going across this bridge too. That river down below, they did a good job on that. For some reason, even though this dirt road isn't muddy, it always slows you down a little bit, and I'm not really sure why. But we're back to the pavement, so we can kick it down. So we can take a left and go through the trees one more time. You can also access this bridge by following the road up and turning left on the pavement, but this way is a little bit quicker. And then we'll take a right just before we get to the railway station, and we can get back out on this paved road. As you can see, that South Bridge is just up ahead. There it is. Stage 1 is complete, and now we just need the 2 service spare parts, just like the last one. So we'll have to get turned around and head back up there. Turning around here is a little bit more difficult with this truck. It's kind of tight down here. Just make sure you plan your route out before doing it. And there are some stumps up on the hillside to watch out for, but miraculously we did it, so we just gotta head back up the hill now. This will be our last load. Let's get turned around and we'll load up 2 service spare parts. We'll head back down there and finish off that bridge. So this isn't really a huge map. It's just a lot of the terrain is difficult to drive through on the outer skirts of it, which can make it feel really big when you're trying to get out into those farther areas. But driving through the middle of it, it's pretty much all highway, so you can get around pretty easily. And we're back. Let's turn these in. Okay, South Bridge is now complete. We have all of the bridges done in Wisconsin. On the next episode, we're going to get started doing some work here, which is what I know you've all been waiting for. Looking forward to it. We'll see you then, and thanks for watching.